coaches because I forgot about it.
We're on. Oh, yeah, I saw that email too. We are on my iPad too, so that's good.
Yay. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm looking all fancy with my rhinestone earrings.
She's all blinged out. She's out.
I'm bringing up the brand a notch with my rhinestone earrings and my bling necklace.
Which means we can charge more. It's a great way to start, but we need to make sure people are on. Oh, there's Edmund. There he is.
There's a few people coming on. So my story is, while we're waiting, that I sing in a chorus called Velvet Hills Chorus. It's a Sweet Adeline's barbershop chorus. And we're doing a virtual chorus. So I had to sing my part today and videotape it, which is why I have bling on. I had a purple shirt on though for my song. But I sang it like 4,252 times, I'm pretty sure, before I decided it was good enough and I should just send it in to the director. And now I'm just not going to go look at anything anyone might say about it. And then I had to upload it to a Google document, which when I went to upload it, everyone's individual recording is in there. So talk about vulnerability, because everybody can just click and hear my own thing.
Oh, wow.
But it's okay, because the chorus, we're all friends. But anyway, several people are coming on. Renee Jetter's there. Hey, Renee. And Bree and Lena and Lynn and Edmund and Karen. Did I say Karen already? Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
We're just talking about music at the moment. but I think we should switch to talking about profitable pricing.
I do too, but I do kind of like that the bling puts a reflection on the brand.
It's timely, my bling earrings, my little rhinestone earrings. Because we're talking about, I should have had like some kind of diamond rings on, but
yeah,
I don't have those, so
might blind everybody. But that is important, that your pricing needs to match your brand and your brand image that you're projecting through your marketing and even your center. All this needs to align, because if you have a mismatch, you're going to cause confusion. And so if you're really wanting to be high dollar, and you don't have to have bling to be high dollar, but you have to portray that is your brand and that is the market you're wanting to reach. And you don't have to do that, although I think Robin and I would both say that our audience does provide high level care quality, which would put you at that top part of the market. Being at the low end, I wouldn't recommend. The problem with being in the middle, where I think a lot of people try to sit, is most of your competition is there at the middle. And so it's a little bit more challenging. But so the first part of pricing right is really kind of taking that step back and thinking about your brand and what you're wanting to portray. So like the Dog Gurus, what we have decided in staff training, that our content is going to be very broad and very deep. So we probably are at the high end of the industry as far as what we charge for our staff training, but we really follow that up with delivering on the value of what you get for the investment. And I think the same holds true for your services.
And I would say for, talking about like, what does your facility look like, or what does your brand look like at the high end? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have chandeliers or, granite marble tops or whatever. Those are nice. If you do have them, that's awesome. But you could have, like, I know some of the folks that are on actually have ranch type facilities. So you can still have that type of facility, but then the quality of your material is still going to be higher end or look nicer. So it's hard to describe like what your brand, but I think we all sort of know when we walk into those facilities and we're like, oh, this is really nice. Doesn't mean, it's crazy out of control, stuff that you would never be able to afford. It just has to look nice, and it has to match whatever your services are and whatever your staff is saying and whatever you look like all of that goes hand in hand to create what your brand image is. So, and then pricing goes along with that. And it's a lot easier to price yourself if the rest of your brand is in line with those pricing as well. So I guess it's kind of it's one of those weird kind of situations.
Yeah. Like one time I was talking to someone who was going to get into the industry, and, you know, they wanted to be kind of a luxury brand, that high end, but they were planning to do their overnight care in crates. And I'm like, I'm not sure that fits. You know, that wouldn't be the expectation of someone who's paying top dollar for overnight care, that their dog's going to stay in a crate. So, you know, that's kind of where you start with when you've created your brand, who you want to be and what you want your pricing to be. You know, the next thing that Robin and I will tell you to focus on as far as pricing profitably is knowing the cost and how much it costs you.
I'm just laughing because if I had $1, if I even had 50 cents for every time somebody over the past, I don't know, how long have we been consulting? It's been a while.
Yeah.
We'll just say for the past decade, just to make it easy. But if I had 50 cents for every time somebody in the past decade emailed me and just said, I want to start service X, it doesn't matter. Name your service. It could be anything. I want to start service X. How much should I charge? I would be a rich woman. But that I just get like, I just want to throw my hands up when I get that question, because there's nothing else provided. It's just basically like, this service should just, no matter what, cost this amount. And it doesn't work that way. So I always nicely reply back, well, how much is it going to cost you to run the service? Because then I can give you a better idea. And so that, I think talking about your costs is a great starting point. And I will say really quickly, if you have questions on pricing, don't ask me how much something should cost unless you're going to
Or you have to pay her $1.
You have to pay me $1 for the inflation.
Then her blank, so it's no longer a 50-cent answer. Now it's a $1 answer.
Exactly, because I got my bling on. For those that joined, I have bling on because I was singing earlier. It has nothing to do with anything else. But it does look nice, right? Goes good with my Dog Guru shirt. Anyway, if you have questions on pricing, just put that comment in the comment box and we'll be sure to answer them. But anyway, Susan's going to talk more about your cost.
Great. So what you want to start out with is knowing your cost of providing a service. So that's going to be your labor. And we're going to first look at your direct labor, the people who are providing the service, whether it's daycare, lodging, grooming, training. It's the people that are actually providing that care. And then any direct supply costs that you have related to that, whether it's food, treats, things like that. So those would be the first part of your cost calculation. And then where people forget to go and add is an allocation of what we call fixed costs, which are basically the costs that you have to pay, whether one dog walks through the door or 50 dogs walk through the door. So that's things like your occupancy costs, which would include either rent, your mortgage interest, all your utilities, your insurance, your advertising, marketing, your kind of managerial payroll, your support payroll, like receptionists who may work for all services you provide. And so there has to be a way where you take that pool of fixed cost and allocate that out to your different services that you provide to really determine whether each service is profitable and contributing to profits in your business.
And that fixed cost thing, I just want to stop you, Susan, for a second, because that fixed cost thing is so interesting, because yesterday, and I never thought about it this way until it came up on one of our calls yesterday, that someone said, well, it doesn't matter. Those fixed costs I have to pay no matter what. So a lot of people look, and it does make sense. Like you kind of figure, well, the fixed costs I'm paying no matter what I'm doing, so I'm not going to factor those in. But just think about that. Like if you follow that theory, your fixed costs, nobody's covering. If you don't factor them into all of your services, there's no way you're getting money for those. So it's an interesting thing that I think people forget about, because they just assume I have to pay those anyway. But you do. But the idea is we want to allocate all those costs to all of your services so that your services are helping you to cover those costs. Otherwise, you're just losing money because you're paying those fixed costs no matter what.
Yeah. And, people will say, well, how do I know what's fixed or variable? And what I would say, what I do when I help clients do this is I take their profit and loss statement, go down to the expense category, and I just look at each line item, thinking in my head, is this a cost they're going to pay regardless of how many pets come in the door, or is it going to vary? And that's kind of your first pass. And if you've never added up what all those fixed costs are, it's a good exercise because you may be actually a little shocked. And so, those have to get covered before you can even start to get a profit. So it's a good way to know how many dogs have to come in the door before you've even covered your fixed costs, let alone your labor costs. So do we have any questions? Because I don't want to go too fast.
Karen had said it's difficult to understand a price for the market when you're the first in the market, which is actually not a bad place to be. But we're going to talk in a second about kind of looking at your market, because that is another point of comparison you do want to know. But you do have to be able to compare apples to apples, so to speak. So if you're the first in your market, I would be looking at pricing yourself higher than anyone else that's doing anything. But it's a good place to be, though, to be first.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, what were you talking about before? I was going to tell you something. I forgot what I was going to say.
Going through the P&L, fixed or variable?
Oh, I was going to talk about allocating. So once you figure out your fixed expenses, then you want to allocate those. Generally speaking, don't spend a ton of time on this, but make an estimate as to what percentage each services should be given of that fixed cost amount, if that makes sense. So I know you talk a lot about doing it by square footage, Susan, if you want to talk about that.
Right. There's really two different ways you can allocate your fixed cost out for most pet service businesses. If you have a brick and mortar facility, I would do it based on square footage that each service is taking up within the building. And so you want to, or even total land. We had a discussion about that yesterday as well, whether it's just the building or all the land. And it would be any space that's being used that you're paying for, really, and then allocating it based on how much the service uses. Because usually, like our grooming salons is a very small space, whereas daycare is a bigger space. And that building is one of your more significant costs. So it doesn't seem quite right that they have an equal share of that. Now, a question always comes up, what do I do with the lobby or hallways, shared space? Well, what I would do is just add up how much is all of that shared space and then just divide that out, maybe even equally or in a weighted average. Again, as Robin said, don't spend a ton of time on this, because once you figure out your building allocation, it will probably stay the same unless you significantly change your service mix. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and if you have something like you do training, dog training in people's homes, or you do pet sitting or dog walking where you don't have a facility necessarily, you would still want to figure out your fixed cost. You still have costs. A lot of them are your car maybe, or gas, or any kind of digital subscriptions you have, office supplies, like those kinds of things. You're still going to have those expenses. And I would still look at how to partition them among your different services, and that it might be based on revenue, like whatever is the most revenue dollars, gets a bigger portion of those fixed expenses. Or you could just guess and just say, well, I think 60% of my time in my car is spent doing this. And so that service will get 60%, whatever. Again, don't analyze it too much and get stuck. But you just want to make sure you've allocated those fixed costs to all your services.
Yep, absolutely. And, one thing I find when working with clients, that the first step that they kind of have to do related to this is break down payroll, because a lot of us haven't assigned payroll to departments, or we share staff because staff's cross-trained, which is great. but again, I wouldn't get too over analytical in this. If you have somebody who, you know, works and comes in early and walks the lodging dogs for a couple hours and then goes to daycare and spends the rest of their shift there, then maybe 25% of their payroll dollars go to lodging and 75% goes to daycare. Any allocation is going to be better than none, and not doing this analysis and exercise. And part of the reason that we're wanting to talk about this now is because in our experience, when we've looked at clients who have done this type of an exercise, one of the most profitable revenue streams in a pet business has always been boarding or lodging. And so we're a little concerned with those numbers being down, what that impact is overall to the business profits. I mean, we know all the numbers are down, but even with your most profitable revenue stream being down, we want to make sure all your other services are priced to where they're profitable for you.
Yeah, and we have worked with a lot of people to generate these numbers for their business. And I guess I will say, sadly, we have worked with a lot of people where when we get them to break out their numbers, because they say, like, my business is profitable, I'm doing well, like, we make a lot of money, I'm taking home a paycheck, it's all good. And then when we go through this exercise, because they've just lumped everything in the company together, so their company P&L is profitable, the bottom line. But then when we have them break all these expenses out by revenue stream, we've worked with a lot of people, probably more than I would have ever imagined, where lodging is super profitable and daycare is actually losing money. But they didn't know it because the daycare numbers were getting rolled up into company numbers and the company was profitable. Well, that's going to be a shock to folks right now if they didn't know that, because now the losses from lodging are going to be compounded by the fact that you're actually operating a potential revenue stream that's not profitable by itself. So that's why we really just want to take this time to say, let's use this time to really make sure that all of your services are profitable. Because to be honest, if daycare is a lot of work, if you're not making money on it, I mean, frankly, it's a lot of work, even if you are making money on it. But if you're not making money, you need to know that. Because like in that scenario, you could just get rid of daycare and be more profitable. Obviously not with COVID, but I mean, as a normal business. Obviously, that's not the goal of most people. They want to continue to run their daycare, but we just want them to understand that their prices need to go up. So every revenue stream you have needs to be profitable by itself. And the only caveat I would say is, unless you're using that revenue stream as a lead generation or a feeder into something else where you're going to make money. So an example of that, when I did puppy classes, I did some puppy classes at the veterinarians' offices, and I didn't charge for those. The reason I didn't charge for those is because I knew statistically I could convert about 70 to 80% of clients who came to my free puppy class. I could get them to buy my training classes. So for me, it was well worth the hour of doing a puppy class if I knew the majority of those puppies were going to end up in my training. So I actually used that as a marketing tool. So I didn't charge for that. So that would be one little revenue stream. I wasn't concerned about making money, but I was tracking the numbers, because you can bet that if I had done, 10 or 12 of those and giving up my time and teaching those pet parents and going to the vet's office and nobody was coming to my classes, I would have stopped doing them, because it would have been a waste of my time. So that's what I would be looking at.
So that's how the first way of looking at pricing is knowing your cost, the cost that of your business to provide that service. Really important. However, I think probably how many of you don't have to put it in the box, but just kind of raise your hand, did use what we would call competitor pricing method of setting prices, which is you went out and looked in your market and went on websites or made phone calls and found out what everybody else was charging and decided either they're going to be high or low or the average. And those numbers are good to know. It's good to know what is the competitive landscape look like in your market. The key to that is being able to do an apples to apples comparison. So for lodging, some people do an all-inclusive pricing where other people do, a night charge and then activities are extra. You also even want to know some of what's included, like how many potty walks out, because if you're taking dogs out 3 or 4 times a day and someone else is only taking them out 2, who's going to have higher costs? You better say 4 because that's more labor. So it is good to know the competitor landscape and what's being charged, but that's just one input to look at. So if we say our first input was the cost in my business, number 1, most important. Second is what's being charged in the market. Again, I would also kind of say, are you targeting the same client base? And that would be, I wouldn't necessarily compare yourself to who you think is maybe low end, targeting a different client base than you are. I would only compare to where you think you're trying to share the same pie. And then the third type of pricing is one that we don't talk about as often, but it's client value. How do clients perceive the value of the service that you're providing? And Robin, you want to talk to them a little bit about that?
Yeah, so looking at the value you provide, and I can tell you for 99.9% of the people that the Dog Gurus work with, those of you that are on this Facebook group included, you guys are providing amazing value, but you guys are in the category of good enough to realize that you think it's normal. Like, you don't realize that what you're providing is so incredibly different from the rest of your market. Maybe some of you do, but what we find is people aren't promoting their value because they just assume it's like, well, that's sort of the minimum that you would want to do to run a good daycare. So you would want to have trained staff. You would want to be having staff that gets continuing education. You would want to be making sure the dogs get rest. You would want to be having really good cleaning protocols. So all of those things that you guys are all doing that you probably just assume everybody does, everybody doesn't do those. So you need to make sure you're promoting all of those things to your clients to make sure they understand the value in terms of not just taking care of their dog, but giving that pet family peace of mind that their dog is in capable hands, that they can trust you. Trust is a huge thing in the pet care industry. We are a service industry. So anything you can do that's building that trust, that's a huge value to those clients. Susan was talking the other day about doing geriatric stuff with senior dogs. And Susan made the comment, and it's so true. Like, if you're able to provide a caring, loving, safe environment for a dog of any age, but especially a geriatric dog that really isn't able to get out as much in the house and can't go on long walks and those kind of things, if you're able to provide that kind of enrichment and a great environment, people are going to pay a lot for that because they love that dog. And that goes for really any age group of dogs. But it's just that we forget that all of those things we just assume that's just the basis of what people want. But we need to promote that and to make sure that our clients know the value of our services. And so things like, especially focusing on your staff training, if your staff is certified through PAC, or if you have dog trainers who have certification through the dog training certification agencies, I mean, all of those things are things that add value to what you're providing to your clients. And you need to make sure that that value is coming across. So you're not just selling, an overnight stay. You're selling the fact that that family can go on vacation and not have to worry about their dog. And not only that, their dog is probably having more fun on vacation than the family is. So that's the kind of thing that people are going to pay for.
Yeah. And what was interesting when Robin and I started helping people do Daycare 2.0, we found a lot of daycares that are like, well, my only problem is I'm already doing this. I'm already doing small groups. I'm already doing enrichment. So the problem is now I realize that I'm not priced for what I'm providing that's different in the marketplace. And so that's an example of someone providing extra value in their services, but not explaining it and not putting it out there and having a higher price point for what they were really providing. And you're just doing yourself a disservice because clients will pay. You have to take control of the conversation and present how you're different. And I would focus on what you do versus what the competitors don't do. I would just really say, And if someone would say, well, down the street, I can get it for X, and you can say, yes, I understand that. And that's great. However, because of the investment in our staff training, the smaller groups, we staff at a lower staff ratio, we do the one-on-one, there's more value to the pet. And so our price is this, which we think is a great value. And usually you list everything. This is like getting into marketing then. It's like you list everything and then you say, and for only.
Yeah.
You put all this for only.
That's the thing. If you can list out everything and just put a dollar amount to it, it's going to end up being something like over $100. And then you go, and we're only charging 45. Then the people are like, oh, I mean, pricing, and that's a whole, that gets into
we could do part 2 on pricing.
Yeah, there's a whole philosophy or psychology about how people buy and shop, and so some of it plays into that, but it's all true too. I'm going to put, I was going to put a link I might have put it in there twice. I don't know. Don't ask me to type while I'm trying to talk. Anyway, I just put a link to our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group on Facebook, obviously. It's called Grow Your Pet Care Business. And it's a group of people in the pet industry that just, help each other and support each other. But anyway, we recently had somebody post about like, what value do you provide? And it's an awesome list that has already been started on there. So you can go and look at it. And some of them are really cool, just some really cool ideas of, what you guys are probably all doing, but maybe forget to tell your clients that you're doing. That is definitely going to increase the value that you're providing and allow you to charge those higher prices. So I think coming back to all of this, when you set your prices, bare minimum, you need to set it higher than your costs. So this is a true story. I've literally seen people who will do this work. We have some documents and tools that we created that help you to plan this stuff out. I mean, you could do this all on the back of a napkin. It's often what me and Susan do to start with, but we have Excel spreadsheets. So I've literally had people fill in the spreadsheet and say, here's my expenses, like fixed expenses are this amount, treats for whatever enrichment are this amount, my staff is this amount. And so that all equals, literally, this is a true one, that equals like $35, whatever that cost is for a day. And then I want to make a profit of $5. So then they list 5 because they want to make a profit of $5. And then it says price you're going to charge. And they put 30. Like, do you see the problem? And so then I said, why are you charging 30? I don't know. I don't know if people are going to pay any more than that. Well, if they're not going to pay more than that, you're not going to cover your expenses. So just don't even offer that service. So it's good to know those, but definitely want to make sure the very bare minimum, you're covering your costs and hopefully making some profit. So do you have any ideas, Susan, on, because everybody always asks, like, how much profit should I be making?
I say you need to be making a minimum of 10% profit on every service to do it, unless it's like one Robin says that is a kind of lead generator or a cross sell, or you're introducing a new service and you want to come in at a lower price point that's still profitable, but maybe not 10% because later you're going to increase, but it may be so new, they need to try it out and then you can raise it. So I'd say 10% is a minimum. Your goal should really be 20% for your business overall. That's what the companies who are being sold at top dollar, and this gets into what is your exit strategy for your business. But if you want top dollar for your business, you need to show a sustained and growing revenue year over year. COVID will be looked at separately, but a 20% profit is going to be better as long as you're keeping that care quality up.
And that's company wide. That percentage is company. Like when you end up putting all of your stuff back together, the profitability of your company is at 20%. So you may have some revenue streams, like Susan mentioned, lodging typically is a higher percentage of profit than like daycare will be. Although we are finding daycare 2.0 is much more profitable percentage wise. That's one of the reasons that we are recommending it. Not the only reason. Susan and I actually started recommending it because we feel it's better for the dogs. And frankly, it's more fun for your staff. But it's also more profitable. So daycare 2.0 training, group classes, generally smaller profit percentage than a private class. So it's when you add all those together, you've set all your prices so that each one of them is profitable, but then your company overall should be at least 20% profitability. If it's higher, that's even better.
Yeah.
But that would be a minimum. So then Debbie Oliver says, woohoo for Daycare 2.0. Debbie Oliver was one of the very first people to do Daycare 2.0 and just ripped the Band-Aid off and converted her whole facility. And it was very stressful for her, but very worthwhile for her as well when it was all said and done. Now I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to just say something else. What was I talking about? Today is like a day I keep forgetting things.
I know. I think there's a certain point in the afternoon we shouldn't be doing these. But
This is too late in the afternoon to do Facebook Live. Okay, I'll let you talk about something and then I'll come back to it.
well, I'm really disappointed we're not getting any questions. So I don't know if they all know this.
Everybody has great pricing right now, right? I know nobody has any questions. If you have questions, put them in the little box there.
And don't be intimidated. You guys can do this. It sounds like there's a lot of number crunching, and getting the first time may take a little while, but if you persevere through it, you're going to feel like you know your business so much better, and you're going to feel so much more empowered to make decisions on, how much you pay your staff, when they can get raises. It's just going to help you make better decisions about your business when you get comfortable with this.
All right. So the thing I was going to say, I just remembered, was about introductory pricing. So for people that are looking at changing their prices, because I guess we should talk about that. We've had a ton of questions. People are using this time of COVID to kind of reset things, which is awesome. So they're trying to take advantage of the opportunity to maybe roll out something different or better than what they had prior to COVID. And price changes are one of the things that we've been getting a lot of questions about. So how do you roll out an increase? So Susan and I are really big on just setting the price and sticking with it. But we also know, and we do this ourselves, so we also know that there is a certain amount of fear that goes into changing your price and being worried about the clients and all of that. So one good way to sort of introduce a new price is to introduce it at whatever rate you think is the price you're going to charge. And then you can always just back off a little bit of that as an introductory offer. And maybe that's an introductory offer that you're only doing to current clients. So like an example right now is Susan and I actually just rolled out Pet Guru College. So it's a new training program. And that we have set that price. And for current members, we're emailing them to go, you guys get a special introductory rate. That rate goes away after a certain time. But that's a good way to introduce something and kind of help you ease into the transition and help your clients ease into the transition. But the introductory price still needs to be profitable. So I'm not saying undercut it so much that it's not profitable, because that defeats the purpose. But that is a good way to introduce it. So Cynthia said, why price higher when you're first in the market? Doesn't that make it easier for someone new to come in and undercut you?
It does. However, what I would say is that when you provide high value and trust and peace of mind, that people are not going to jump for a few dollars. I think you'll establish yourself and be loyal, especially if you're providing services that they really want and you communicate that value, because that's what's hard for the new people to come into the market and be able to be successful at. And then I would ask yourself, do you want the client that's just going to jump for a lower dollar? Is that really the target client you're after? Or are you looking for the client that you're building that relationship and wanting to have that loyalty? If you want to compete on price, then you're going to be in the middle, and it's going to be heavier competition. So
yeah, and that's actually what's happened. Yeah, and that's actually what's happened with daycare, like day-long play, because it has become a commodity. So when you're in the commodity field, that means you're in the middle and there's a whole bunch of people offering it. You're going to get the price hoppers. That's, when I go to buy bread, I'm not really loyal to any particular brand of bread. I'm just like kind of looking at whatever is the cheapest, or, milk or whatever. That's what daycare has become in a lot of markets. So you will get people that are saying, the daycare down the street is offering it for X amount, and why are you charging more? That kind of thing. So you do have to make sure that you're looking at what, this goes back to what we said in the very beginning, which is what is your brand and what kind of client do you want? And let's face it, we all know the clients that were like, I wish they weren't our client, right? So build your business in a way that you're attracting the clients you want and not so much attracting the clients that are just going to price shop and hop around from place to place. So I think that's great. So Debbie said, relationship is worth a ton to owners. Yeah, I would 100% agree. Again, this is not a commodity. This is a relationships industry. We're selling or should be building relationships in the pet industry. So at 100%, if you trust somebody with your dog and you really feel that your dog is in good hands, you're not gonna leave because someone next door has a lower price. So, and those are the people that most of you are probably marketing to as well.
You might even drive 45 minutes to have your dog go to camp.
like Susan does.
That's right.
So Renee's, I love Renee's. I don't necessarily have a question. I just need to review my numbers again. This just confirms it. Yeah, it's easy to forget about the numbers, honestly, because none of us, I mean, like, raise your hand if you got into the pet industry because you love numbers, not counting Susan. Not counting if you have a degree in accounting. But yeah, none of us got into the pet industry because we wanted to look at the numbers. But it is really important, and especially the common myth that Susan and I actually hate to hear is the people who are like, well, I own a pet business, so I'm never going to make any money, or I have to have a lower salary because I'm in the pet industry. That's not true. Like, they're not mutually exclusive. You can run and I would say the people who interact with us, the people that we deal with at the Dog Gurus, those are the people I want to stay in business. Those are the people that need to be charging enough because your services are amazing. So you need to charge for that value and stay in business longer and not burn out. Because that's what happens if you don't charge what you're worth, is eventually you and your staff will burn out and your business isn't going to be around as long. So this is why we're really passionate about it.
Yeah. And I mean, I want you to think, because I'm sure you guys know competitors and you've talked to veterinarians in your market, and places that are having injuries, and you've had staff come from other places and tell you kind of what goes on behind the curtain. Should you be priced the same as them to provide the same service? I would say no, definitely not. That's kind of the reality check.
Yeah, and I love this from Kristen said, they need to make significant price increases. We are a high-end grooming salon that has outstanding reviews to our quality and extreme focus on customer service, which is awesome. Our prices are already on the higher end in big city, but due to our reputation, we're booked out 8 to 10 weeks, which causes a lot of stress. So for those of you, that's a great problem to have. It's a problem, definitely, but a great problem to have. For any of you that have wait lists, guess what the solution is? Raise your prices. Because the wait list is the perfect scenario to me, because the fear that everyone has, all of us, every single one of us, we all are afraid of raising prices because we think we're going to lose our clients. So there's a rational part of that, and there's an emotional part of that. The emotional part of that is that we all want to take care of the dogs, and oh my gosh, if I raise my prices, then Fifi's mom is not going to be able to afford it. And I love Fifi and she's never going to come back to daycare. Like, that's the emotional side of it. I totally get it. But the business side of it is what you need to look at. And the business side of it is more than likely, this is what I always tell people, just do the numbers. Okay, if you get 50 dogs a day at $35 a dog, now say you're going to increase your prices to $45 and you might lose 10% of your clients. Do that math. You're going to make more money, even if you lose 10% of your clients. Not that we want to lose 10% of the clients. I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm doing this to say, do the reality check. If you really are afraid you're going to lose clients, do the math. Even if that fair plays out, you're probably still going to make more money with fewer dogs. And I always tell people, do it with 20% loss of clients and a 30% loss of clients. Usually in the 10 to 15% range is where you break even to where like I lost 15% of my clients, I'm still making the same amount of money. To me, that's still a good thing. Obviously, it's not a good thing because you may lose clients that you love, but from the business side of it, it's not a bad situation. But here's the thing, wait lists, if you have a wait list, it's the perfect scenario because you could lose your clients and you've got a wait list of others to fill their space. So if you have a wait list, that's a no-brainer. You should raise your prices. That is my soapbox. She's just laughing because she's like, oh, we'll get Robin started on the whole wait list situation. Yeah, raise your prices. Definitely. All right, let me go see what other questions here we have. David Boyd says, the only things we discounted during the last couple of months were to compensate for boarding occupancy and closed training classes. Boarding and train were discounted by 200, or levels members were offered special. So that's an example of, those of you that have talked to us at all know we're not huge fans of discounting, but that's an example of trying to get, business in the door. So there might be a reason to do that. Like Susan said, if you have like an introductory special because you're trying to get people in the door, there could be reasons to have the discount. We would just say, make sure your discounts are less than 10% across the board. And definitely don't discount to where you're not making money, because that doesn't make any sense.
No, list all your discounts. This is a good exercise. List every discount that you offer for any service and make a list of them and how much the discount is. And then I want you to write beside each one how that benefits your business. Not how it benefits the client because they have 3 dogs and want a cheaper price. How does that benefit your business? Because there should be a business reason for every discount you offer. And I'm just going to stop because that's my
We do a lot of the pet industry. We are like the nicest people ever. We do a lot of discounts that help the pet family. Which is super nice. It's not helping our businesses though, is all I'm saying. So just make sure there's a reason for the business too. So Courtney said, if you have something no one else does, you can charge more. Definitely. Like that's where you're really setting yourself apart, and people should be paying more for it. And that's what a lot of you are doing, stuff that is not what your competitors are doing, but because you think everybody does it the same way you do, you don't realize that you're offering a much better service. So definitely promote yourself that way. So here's a good one. Cynthia said, someone starting out brand new business, people say it takes 5 years to get ahead. I don't agree with that at all.
No, I think you should
In fact, I don't know if I would start a business. It was going to take me 5 years to get my money back.
You should be profitable in year 3 at the latest, really.
Yeah. And a lot of it depends on obviously your startup costs, but the greater your startup cost, theoretically, the larger your facility or occupancy should be to generate that revenue back. So yeah, most of the places that we've worked with start seeing profitability in the middle of the second year, and definitely by the third year. 5 years is a long time to be working off of your savings or whatever. All right. Do you have any tips for transitioning from home-based daycare to a commercial-based daycare with other home-based daycares? We're trying to get a plan in motion. So like a group of people are going to come together and form a company. Is that what that means?
I'm not positive. You can clarify. We'd be happy to answer that, because one thing I'll talk about from pricing is probably your cost related to a home-based daycare are going to be less than a commercial. However, maybe going commercial is you're going to have some other conveniences, other services. And so that's where some of your client value can come in. Now, really, if you do have a home-based business, you should be allocating some of those home expenses to the business. So there should be some fixed costs related to that. But for most everyone, when you go from home-based to commercial, you are going to have higher costs. And so your prices are going to have to go up. So you'll have to build in the value for the clients to understand what they're getting with going to the commercial-based space.
Yes, you said 3 different individual daycares based at home turning into a commercial. That's cool. Yeah, it's going to be looking at your expenses of what your building ultimately is. And I would look at daycare 2.0.
Yeah.
we are.
The other thing is have a really good partnership agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. We would say get a good partnership agreement together too. Someone had written, what is the current rate for boarding and daycare? It's funny, this came up earlier today too. So I don't know about, do you know what it is for lodging? For the last financial survey that was done, the going daycare rate was, I think, $27 a day. That's for day-long play. Now, I'm going to just say Susan and I 20 years ago were charging like $25 a day. So I'm just going to tell you the going rate and what should be charged, I don't think are comparable. But I do think across the board, the average, and it does depend a little bit on where you're located, but the average for daycare is probably around 27 for day-long play. Daycare 2.0, enrichment type of daycare, is usually $10 to $15 off of higher than that as a general rule. I don't know about lodging though. Do you, Susan?
I'll look it up as we talk. I'll look in the survey and let everybody know. So we'll just keep talking, and when I have it, I'll let you know. I
like Gina said, my motto as a pet sitter, thou shalt not discount. That's a good motto to have.
Absolutely.
And then Sharon said, this is another really good reason we've seen people raise prices is to make business more manageable. Raising prices is a great way to start. We know a lot of people who they just felt like their daycare was getting just really, really crazy, and they actually wanted to reduce their numbers. And so that was one of the reasons they raised their prices, was to get rid of some clients, basically have a smaller client base. Now, here's what I'll tell you about that. If you're really good, you're going to raise your prices, you're going to lose some clients, and then you're going to gain them all back, and you're going to be full within a year at that higher rate. That's what's going to happen. So here's the story I always tell people. When I had my training facility, and I did in-home lessons, and I did that for years. So I did private lessons in people's homes, and they were hour-long, 45-minute lessons, and I charged like $75 when I started. So over time, I got tired. After like 4 years, and now my prices were up at about $150 to go in. I got tired of doing in-home lessons. So I was like, I don't want to do these in-home lessons anymore. I want people to come to my facility. It's just taxing on me. I just don't want to do it. So instead of just not doing it, I decided I would charge more. If people want it, I'll do it, but you have to pay me a lot. I did this 3 different times where I was like, I'm just going to raise prices like $50. And then I ended up getting more business. Like every time I raised my prices, when I finally stopped doing private lessons, I was like at $250. Literally, I would walk into a client's house. This happened so many times, it just became a joke. I'd walk into someone's house and they'd go, you cost more than my plumber. That was like the comment every single, like I would say 90% of my clients would say that to me as soon as I walked in the door. You cost more than my plumber. I'd be like, yeah, well, okay. Anyway, my theory was by charging myself out of the market, I would charge myself out of the market and not do these. But what happened was the more I charged, the more popular it became. It was just really frustratingly annoying, but a good lesson to learn, which is everybody we see that changes their prices to reduce their business and make their business more manageable, which I do think works within a short period of time. If you're good at what you're doing, you're going to have just as many clients and you'll be back in the same, oh, I need to change my prices again kind of situation, which is a good problem to have. It's kind of like with the grooming salon.
I did find the last survey for boarding, the median rate was $45 a night for dog boarding. The most common charge was $35 a night. However, there's nothing in that would say we're comparing apples to apples. So,
yeah, so that is across the board from everybody
right.
that submits the survey. So, all right, last question. What do you consider the best way to show you are different than the competition? We talked a little bit about that earlier, and it's really just making sure your clients understand what you're providing, and not just in the terms of I'm taking care of your dog, but what are you really providing to them? And we talked a little bit about that being the care and the trust and the safety and the fact that they're getting peace of mind when they leave their dog with you and their dog is getting to have fun. So all of those things are super important, but then I would throw in all of the non-tangible things that you do to make sure your staff is taking as good a care of the pets as possible, which includes cleanliness and staff training and whatever you do to make sure that dogs are put in proper groups, the fact that you do evaluations, the fact that you're doing supervision with the dogs. I mean, there's a whole ton of stuff.
I would make a list of how you provide services and how they benefit the client, each service, and how your business is structured to benefit the client. Maybe it's convenient. Maybe there's supervision there 24/7. Maybe you have late drop-off pickup hours. Maybe you're doing curbside service and keeping that up. So how does it benefit client and how does it benefit the pet? And just make a list. It would be a great lunch and learn exercise, because I bet you've got staff that have worked other places that will be able to help say, oh, we never did these things, and so you're doing it. And then that you pick the top ones, and that becomes part of your sales pitch. As far as when people inquire about your service, you don't tell them price right off the bat. You take control of the conversation and say, well, I really want you to understand how lodging works at Rowdy Rover Retreat. We do, and just describe your key value things about the pet and for them. And then when you talk about the price, it's only this a night, they're going to realize, oh, wow, the last place I called didn't tell me they did all that. This sounds great. This is what I want, because I want peace of mind. I want trust.
Yeah, and I did put the link in there again for our Facebook group. And on that, somebody actually started a thread. We were on a phone call yesterday, and they said we were talking about this topic, and they posted in the Facebook group to start this conversation. So if you go there, it's one of the more recent posts, but there's a whole list of ideas that people have started throwing out. So it's kind of a fun discussion that people are talking about. And then Jess, who's our moderator on our Facebook page, she's one of our team members. She was talking about that she does exactly what Susan just said. She includes a lot of those talking points as part of her tour or as part of her script when people answer the phone. So you do have to be very intentional. It's one thing to know you're running a super safe, amazing pet care center. And that's another thing to proactively make sure you're letting people know that you're doing that without sounding like a salesman, because none of us like that. But we definitely feel like there's a way you can sell with integrity and make sure that people understand what you're offering and why it is so amazingly better than, what your competition might be doing. So it's definitely important. All right. So I said one last question, but this really is going to be the last question now, is that Diane said, do we dare raise prices now? Which actually someone earlier said they raised prices. I can't remember where it was now. Somebody said they actually raised prices during COVID. And right here, Renee, ironically, we raised prices in the middle of COVID and restructured it slightly, and knock on wood, we're not having any issues with getting new clients or keeping old ones. So we've actually worked with several people who either were planning on a price increase already, and it just happened to coincide with when COVID started, so they implemented it anyway. And then we have worked with others who have raised their prices during this time frame, primarily because they are offering a new service. And so they kind of tweaked the service they had and rolled out something new, which was a relatively easy way to increase the pricing of it. But I do think we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Susan. I do think a little bit of it depends on kind of what's happening in your market. If you want to.
Right. But I think the bottom line is you've got to do the work and know your numbers, and your clients want you to be there for them long term. And if your current pricing is not set up for you to have a long-term sustainable business, then you've got to increase your pricing. We've had several people increase pricing and it's been fine, but every market is different, and where you're located is different, and how your clients are being impacted by COVID. But I wouldn't say maybe you don't raise them today in June or July, but maybe you can in September or October. I wouldn't say that there's no way I can increase prices until 2021 and then your business doesn't make it. I would at least try.
If you're losing money, I would definitely raise prices now. So, because you have to, otherwise you're just going to keep losing money. So I think it is, but you do have to look at what your market, and everybody's a little bit different in terms, like Susan said, in terms of how they've been affected by everything going on. So, we do have a handout for you. Do you want to talk about that, Susan? I'll put it in the COVID-19 page when we download this video there.
Yeah, we have a program or a product which is to help you actually get your financial system all set up. And there was a chapter on pricing, and it describes how to do a lot of what we talked about, the cost-based pricing, the market competitor, the value pricing. And we're going to give you that chapter out of that product to help you analyze and do your pricing.
And I just put the link, in about an hour or so, the link to this Facebook Live will be on that page. And I'll also include the PDF that Susan's talking about, so you can download it there.
And we do have an Excel template that if you're really wanting to get in and do the work on your pricing, that would make that easier. And it's for the great value for finding out how much your discounts are, as well as if every service is making a profit, and you can get it for the low price of $39.95. Does that not seem worth it? That's probably reporting overnight.
No, I can guarantee you, if you do Pet Profits, you will make that money back like 100 times at least in what you find out from that. Seriously, even just doing like back of the napkin breakouts of what we talked about earlier, really understanding your cost per service, allocating the fixed expenses, and then matching that to your posted rate is going to be eye-opening for if you do that by service. But wait, there's more. If you then take it to the next step of, and this is takes a little bit more time, but take it to the next step of, what is my posted rate and how much is my actual rate? In other words, when you add in all your discounts, what are you actually getting per dog for that service? That's also eye-opening. So it's definitely a good thing to run through at least once a year. And COVID is a great time to do it, because we're in this weird situation where everybody needs to be looking at their numbers anyway. So anyway, we appreciate it. So Lana said, where am I going to post that? So on that COVID-19 page, thedoggurus.com/COVID-19, we have put a ton of resources out there. They're all free resources that you can get. We started these Facebook Lives like 8,000 years ago. No, I think it was like 3 months ago. When COVID started, we started these Facebook Lives, and then we've kind of been having fun with them. So we just decided to keep doing them. But so if you have topics you want us to talk about, send us those too. Because we're always looking for ideas to jump on Facebook and chat with you guys about. So we're open to any ideas you have. But anyway, we post the links on that COVID-19 page. That's where they are for now. Eventually, they'll probably go to YouTube. But when I post the video there, I will add the link to the download so that you can get that download too. All right. Have a great holiday weekend for those of you that, I guess in Canada, it's a holiday weekend too. It definitely is for the United States. Hopefully your lodging numbers have come up a little bit if you're doing lodging for the holiday. So that's good if that's happening. Otherwise, have a great holiday, and we will talk to you in a week or so.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone.